Welcome to My Line of Work. Here we dive deep into the world of work, what people do, why they do it, and how they got there. From dream jobs to unexpected paths, every story matters and every career has a story worth sharing. Today, our special guest is John Fannin. Thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead and tell people what you do.
All right. My name is John Fannin. I am a coach at KidStrong, and I am the owner, founder, CEO, HR, manager, everything at Get More Better, which is my blog and whatnot.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. So how'd you get into what started first? The coaching or the writing, the blog or the coaching?
Athletics, really, like coaching really got me started in this field because getting out of the Marine Corps, I was looking for something to do as an adult that I wasn't trained for in the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, I was an infantryman. Not exactly a lot of high demand for infantry type guys in the civilian job market, right? So I was trying to figure out like what to do with my life. And I had a friend recommend kinesiology, exercise science, fitness, and whatnot. And so I started to get into that and read more about it. And I went to school for it. I played a year of college football at a D3 school. I'm not a super athlete. And I got really into fitness, really into being strong. And I found that it also made me better in other areas of my life. And so coaching was kind of always along that career track of, I like exercise. I like how exercise makes me feel. I want to share that with other people and give them I don't know if it's life-changing lessons that sport taught me.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
that athletics taught me.
There's a lot of life lessons in sport.
Exactly. And so I've coached swimming. I've coached physical therapy technically. Like I've been a personal trainer, a personal coach, and now working with kids, it's given me a whole new kind of frontier to learn and adapt from, because adults are generally pretty easy to get along with, in my opinion. Kids have all sorts of different things going on with them that you never know why they're in a mood for that day. And so it really tests your patience and your compassion and your empathy and your sympathy, being able to recognize when something is a disruption versus when a student is having a legitimate, serious problem. Right. And how you're going to work through those. So I really enjoy that a whole bunch. It's really been a nice journey to get here.
Awesome. And they're typically there because someone's telling them to be there, as opposed to adults who's like, you know what, I think I need to get in shape, and they'll reach out to someone, right?
I'm very fortunate. A lot of my friends that I've trained privately do a really good job, because I preach one thing to them that I preach to the kids at KidStrong as well. It's about consistency. It's not about being perfect on this one day. It's about showing up and giving what you have to your fullest. And that's okay. It kind of reminds me of a quote that I was told by somebody when I was first getting into the fitness industry. They said, oh man, what is it? Son of a gun, I mind blanked. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. Consistency.
No worries.
The 15-minute workout that you do is better than the 1 hour long workout that you never get to.
That's good.
Right? Like, there are days I don't want to lift. Like, lifting saved my life. I can legitimately say that exercise saved my life. And there are still days, even with such a profound impact that it's had on my life, I don't want to get up and exercise. I don't want to do it. It's work. It requires effort. It requires steeling yourself. It requires mental fortitude, to, especially, not to toot my own horn, but when you've been doing it for a long time, the weights are generally a lot higher. Well, it's time consuming to take the weights off and put the weights back on and everything. And so there are days that I don't really want to do it either. But it's important to show up.
I like that. The 15-minute workout you do has more impact than the 1 hour one you don't do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in the am I prepared? Do I have the right weights? Am I going to the right gym? Am I doing the right exercises? And it's just like, dude, go do it wrong until you figure out how to do it right.
Yeah, like exercise is one of those really cool things that, like, with a few very base, like a very small amount of basic knowledge, you can get into phenomenally good shape.
Yeah.
I joke with people all the time. I'm like, if people would do more squat patterns, doesn't even have to be like loaded, just a body weight squat. Hinge patterns, which is kind of the deadlift motion, just hinging at the hip, pushing your glutes back.
Yeah.
Push-ups and pull-ups. If you did just those 4 exercises, you'd be in better shape than probably 90% of the world.
Oh, nice. I heard a really funny story. Do you know the actor Alec Baldwin?
Yeah.
So apparently he was on a movie set or a TV, I don't know with who. It was a set, a film set, with a younger actor. And there was a scene where the younger actor takes his shirt off, and he's not like super in shape, but he's, he has a 6-pack. So then Alec Baldwin, who's older, he's like, "Hey man, well, like, what do you do?" And then we find out later that he tells him playing around. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 pull-ups every day. That's it." Right. So then Alec Baldwin, he starts doing this 100, 100, because he thought the kid was serious. Later on, you hear the story from both sides. The kid is like, "Well, I didn't want to make him feel bad and tell him, like, I'm 20 years old. My metabolism is crazy. Like, I wake up like this." Right? He's like, "So I told him I'd work out." Well, Alec Baldwin, he took it serious and he did the 100, 100, 100. And he ended up losing a lot of weight, and he got in really good shape.
I mean, that's the thing is it's about consistency, and that's one of the big things that I try to bring to, especially like with younger kids, coaching younger kids, is bringing that consistency, because like we have a lot of great families, we have a lot of great people involved at KidStrong, and what those kids really need to see day in, day out is a good example of how an adult interacts with a child on both sides, like how an adult male interacts with a young female, how the young men see that interaction going, so they learn to treat a young woman appropriately and have respect instead of being, a degenerate of sorts, because I know boys can have a tendency to be bits of a degenerate. But it's important that they see the same product day in, day out from us, as far as the things that we're teaching, right? We're teaching it's okay to do hard things. Well, when we run up into hard things in our adult lives, we can't be made liars. We have to be like, "Oh, I preach this to the kids. Don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, gotta bite my tongue, or gotta exercise some self-discipline or self-control, even though I really don't want to, and I'd be really justified if I didn't." So
I do love that about KidStrong. The lessons that my daughter learns outside of just, hey, physical activity is important. There's a lot of she's been on the chore thing this week. She cleans her room really fast every day, about 5 minutes. And going back to the consistency thing, right? Like, we didn't used to tell our kids they had to clean their room every day, but then we're like, "Hey, clean your room." It would take them a really long time, because they would throw things in the closet, under the bed, and then I'd go in and I'm like, "Those things don't go there." So okay, let's learn how to really clean our room. And now that they do it every day, it's like 5 minutes. Other than laundry day, which they're putting away clothes, but the consistency thing. I wanted to ask you, so how did you get into the Marines? And then how long were you there? And then how long was that transition to finding the kinesiology study?
So I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18. I actually just told a person, they were asking me why. They're like, "So why'd you enlist?" I was like, "It's for a really immature boy reason. I didn't want to miss the war." I come from a very, like, I've always had a lot of self-confidence, despite, like, or maybe it's bravado, and not actually self-confidence, because it doesn't always make an appearance. But I didn't have, like, necessarily the best childhood. I was kind of a dork, kind of a nerd, kind of got bullied a whole bunch. And so when the opportunity came to go on like a grand adventure that like builds you into a man, like the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was right there. And like you see so many movies and so many historical things about men being the best version of themselves and being tough guys when they go off and join. And I was just like, look, I was a dork, I was picked on, I was all these bad things. I'm going to go join the Marine Corps and learn how to be a tough guy. And so I did that. I spent 4 years in. I went to Iraq twice. I got more than I bargained for. I am a pretty peace-minded guy now. I don't really think war is, I don't want to get political or anything, but I just have I don't think a lot of people know what they're asking for when it comes to like, oh, let's go to war versus the country. I'm like, I really like not know what you're asking for, my friend. Like if it's justified, like I get it. Like, you know, something like World War II, like I get it. Yeah. But it doesn't make it, you know, palpable. But moving on from there, I found the kinesiology probably about 2.5 years after I got out. I'd kind of floated around for a little bit doing odd jobs. I sold cars, worked at a ski resort, just kind of bouncing all over the place, kind of doing minimum wage jobs and stuff. And I was just like, man, there's got to be more to life than this. You know, just working really hard with my hands all day. Yeah. Like, it's fine. I don't mind working with my hands. Yeah. But the pay sucks. Yeah. And I'm tired every day. There you go. And I can't do anything fun with any really pretty girls, you know, because I'm poor. Right. And so I was like, gotta go to college. And I had started dating a girl whose undergrad was in recreational therapy. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. You know, that's interesting. And we got to talking a lot about it. And she's like, oh, yeah, there's lots of, because I had no idea about what you could take in college. And she's like, oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And I kind of went the route of what job could I have where I only ever have to wear shorts to work? You know, I bet if I was somewhere in like the gym, athletic training fields, like I wouldn't have to wear pants. I bet I could wear shorts every day. And so it was a nice, easy sell because like I'm very minimalist in how I do things. Like I don't like it to take me 20 minutes to get ready. Like between shower, getting ready and walking out the door, it should take me no more than 10 minutes. Yeah. Like that's going from completely not ready to go, showering, getting dressed, getting ready, brushing teeth, deodorant, everything, putting the dog up. 10 minutes should be is my goal. And it's
I'm the same, which is why I made a shirt for when I interview people. I'm like, I'm going to wear the same thing every time. Like, I don't have to think about it. Yeah.
That's smart. If I ordered some samples from my website to come in so I could start wearing our brand. Oh, yeah. But they haven't gotten here yet. So I was like, I guess I can't wear those for the interview. All right. No big deal.
No, it's all good. We'll do our diligence to share the message. Very cool. And then, so did it take you 4 years? Having already been
5. Because I took some remedial classes because I hadn't been in school. So like remedial algebra, you know, because I just hadn't been doing algebra. Yeah. And I'm kind of one of those, if you don't use it, you lose it with math skills. Yeah, yeah. Like if I do a lot of math, I get really good at math. Okay. If I don't do a lot of math, I might as well be in 3rd grade. It's one of those things that like I have to practice every day or else I'm going to not be great at it.
Yeah. Very cool. So then what you studied kinesiology or what did you study?
I studied kinesiology, exercise science. Okay. It's a really fun thing. You get to learn a lot about the human body, about how we overcome, at least physically in the physical realm, how we overcome adversity. And you know, it's actually hilarious because it's counter to what a lot of people would think is that, you know, you go to the gym to build your body up, right? Well, no, if you actually know anything about lifting weights, when you go to the gym, you're actually tearing your body down. Okay. You're creating micro trauma and tears in the muscle fibers, and you're actually destroying stuff. You're damaging stuff so that it can be remade into something bigger. And when we go into the things that happen to us in our lives, whether it's, you know, like that's a physical thing, right? Yeah. But these emotional things, we don't grow when we are working. We grow when we're resting. That's when everything has the time to heal. So like if you're going through something, if you're going through whatever, you're not going to be able to heal until you allow yourself to rest.
I like that.
And it's hard to rest your mind.
Yeah.
Right. Easy to rest your body. I can sit on the couch all day and rest my body and be totally fine. Resting my mind, shutting off the negative stuff, that's hard. And that's where that consistency that we're talking about is like, hey, if you want your kids in your classes to respond this way, you owe it to yourself to respond this way right now. Because I don't know, I think very highly of kids. I think they're a lot more intuitive and they pick up on a lot more than we give them credit for. Yeah. And so I am, with everything that's been going on in my life the last 2 years, right? You would think the kids would know something is up. Yeah. Like, not to get too serious and take it off the beaten path, but cancer, divorce, several friends passing away. Wow. Dad is currently in the hospital. I just got an update from mom before coming in. He's doing fine. Oh, that's good. His procedure today went well and everything. Oh, awesome. But I'm definitely dealing with some stuff. Yeah. And what I have to make sure that I do is every day come in and not compartmentalize and not push that stuff down, but leave it at the door. Yeah. And say that, like, although all that stuff is going on in my life, something that is very important right here and now is that I am with these kids and giving them my 100. And when they see that, when they see an adult being able to not push his feelings down or push them to the side, but set them off to the side for a moment to focus on them, I think that teaches them something really beautiful that they can, because as adults, we don't think if we're going through something that we can be there for people. Yeah. But we can. Mm-hmm. We have every bit of that capability. And I think it's really cool for the kids to see that as well and to start practicing that at a very early age. Yeah. I think that goes back to what you mentioned about when physically we work out, we tear our bodies, but then we become stronger through rest. I think a lot of the things that we confront in life, issues and death and sickness, being able to come out the other end of that, now you're in a position to help someone like, oh, hey, man, I went through that. I went through a divorce and this is, I can help you. And, oh, yeah, my dad passed away or my dad's this or right? Like we can now offer the support that, because the position you're in, right? I had a close relative of mine lose a spouse and I've never been in that position. So my help is like very general, right? Oh, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do? But if there's someone that has lost a spouse, they can really come and say, hey, I've been there. Like, like they can really know and connect and say, hey, this is what I needed. And so I want to offer you like what you need, right? There's a bridge. Yeah. There's a bridge. And that's one of the reasons I kind of do the second thing that I do, which is the writing is, it's very free form. It's unstructured. I don't even have an editorial calendar. I sit down and write what I feel like writing that day. Oh, cool. I generally try to write about 3 times a week, but what it all deals with is stuff that I'm looking at internally in myself, stuff that I'm failing at, stuff that I'm not that great at. And it's not condemnational or anything like that, but it's just like, look, I recognize that this is a part of me. And I recognize that I don't want this to be a part of me. And I would rather something else be a part of me. Yeah. And so how do I get from A to B in doing that? Because my brain, the way it works, sometimes it's like a million miles a minute. And so being able to get a coherent thought out without jumping on different little side conversations, the writing really helps me keep it directed and focused in that one area. And so like I can actually take life lessons, take practical things between myself and my coaching and my own personal development and my coaching and back and forth. Like I said earlier, they kind of feed themselves, right? You learn lessons from kids. You see what some of the kids are going through and how they're resilient, how they're doing it. And you're like, wow, the simpleness of a child sometimes is the best approach to solving a problem.
Yeah.
And then other times it's, I'll have kids that are crying in class and not having a good time. It takes a lot of patience to sit there with that kid.
Yeah.
Right. I know even as parents, like my parents didn't necessarily love sitting there when I was having a temper tantrum and throwing a fit. Right.
Yeah.
But being able to just sit there with them and be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm sad, or I'm hurt, or I'm upset, or they pushed me, or whatever. But having that patience, right? That's something I can take back to my day-to-day life. Like don't get me wrong, I've gotten a lot better at it, but I can be a bit of a road rager. I can get like, I want people, if you're not doing 90 on the freeway, I don't know what I don't know what you're doing. And so like I can get myself, because it comes from within me, worked up and agitated because I'm like, oh, this person needs to go faster.
Yeah.
But then you go and you do your stint coaching, and you're just like, if I had the patience to sit there while that kid screamed in my ear, I probably have the patience to deal with these people not driving as fast as I'd like them to drive.
Yeah.
And it's, they're those little lessons that just kind of culminate and build until it's something, it's like if you started out walking, for instance, and you're like, I'm going to walk a mile a day, right? Every day. Well, after 5 days, not a lot, right? It's only 5 miles.
Yeah.
After 365 days, it's quite a bit.
Oh.
You've gone from here to Dallas.
Yeah.
In a year. Now, think about that in terms of how you could build your life.
Yeah.
Right? If you only got 1% better every day.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, could you imagine how great your life would be if it was 365% better than it was today?
Yeah.
Like if my life was 40% better than it is today, I would be stoked.
Yeah.
And it's not a big thing that we have to do. It's 1% better.
Yeah.
And when you can take that to the kids and be like, hey, it's not this big insurmountable thing.
Yeah.
It's not, the Himalayas that you have to scale in an afternoon. It's this is bite-sized.
Yeah.
This is digestible for you. You can take this in as nutrition. It's not too much that overwhelms your senses.
Mm-hmm. I tell you, have you heard of Shel Silverstein?
Yes, love Shel.
Have you heard the Melinda May poem about eating a whale?
Probably.
You should look that up. It's a really good. Actually, let me look it up.
We read a lot of Shel Silverstein when I was a kid. I liked his way of writing.
I brought it up in another podcast, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look it up next time.
Might be a something to put on your merchandise as that quote.
Yeah. It says, have you heard of tiny Melinda May who ate a monstrous whale? She thought she could. She said she would, so she started in right at the tail. And everyone said, you're much too small, but that didn't bother Melinda at all. She took little bites and she chewed very slow, just like a little girl should. And 89 years later, she ate that whale because she said she would. Isn't that a great poem?
That is a great poem.
Yeah. And so I forgot why it was brought up in an earlier podcast, but I told them about that poem. Yeah, and it's about consistency, and it's about, the way I say it is baby steps. I tell my kids, baby steps, right? Like you said, right? Like I tell my boys, right? You want to get better at soccer? My boys play soccer. I'm like, it's baby steps. It's like dribbling and touching the ball like consistently every day. And so I love that. I love that message that you're giving the kids about, like, I can do 1% better today. And then if I do that over time, compounding, right? Compound interest is powerful. I like finances. And so compound interest is just very, very, very clear message to me. That's cool. And so after you got your degree, how long did it take you to find a coaching job?
So my career kind of took an interesting path. I started off as a personal trainer and working at a physical therapy clinic, which I enjoyed the work. It was fun. It was within my field. It was something that I was knowledgeable about. I was saying, that competence, equals confidence.
Okay.
Like when you're competent in your stuff, it's easier for you to be confident about it and whatnot. And so it was in my field, but it just didn't pay the bills enough. And some things had fallen through where I was supposed to start a business with another guy, but he kind of left me high and dry. But a little bit after, let's say 2017, Hurricane Harvey hit. While I was in college, I had the privilege of working at the volunteer fire department there in McQueeney and earning my swiftwater rescue certification for the fire department. So when Hurricane Harvey hit, I actually ended up quitting my job at the PT clinic and going to Houston for 3 weeks, where I worked doing swiftwater rescue operations and then demo and like cleanup stuff as well. And when I got back from there, I had ended up making some friends at a place called Grunt Style, where they hired me as a writer.
Nice.
And I started writing about veterans issues and things relating to veterans, stories we might find interesting. And for about almost 2.5, 3 years, from I want to say October of 2017 till April of 2020, I worked at Grunt Style. I was the deputy editor for American Grit.
Nice.
And I really found a joy in writing, and I found a lot of success. We grew the sessions from 130,000 a month to 350,000 a month. Under my watch. I was very that's something that I was very proud of. Granted, we had the massive social media following of Grunt Style behind anything I wrote. But it was a matter of getting content that the people wanted to read to the people. And they wanted some serious stuff with a little bit of a sense of humor. So that's kind of how my writing style is I talk about serious stuff with a little bit of humor, a little bit of self-deprecation. I'm okay. I can take it. I know what's good about me. I know what's bad about me. But it's serious stuff broken down in how you would probably talk to a 5-year-old about it.
Okay. Nice.
Right. In a non-condescending way. Right. It's let's boil some of these things down. Let's make a differentiation between symptoms and causes.
Okay.
And let's address the causes.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not worried about the symptoms. I don't care that you're crying.
Yeah.
Right. That's a symptom.
Yeah.
What's really going on? Oh, you broke your leg. Okay, we can fix that.
Yeah.
You're gonna cry still, but at least we know what's wrong now. And we can do something about it. And it's kind of universal like that is, once you know, then you go. That's what my coach said in football when I was playing. I played defensive line, which for everybody looking at me, I get it. Division III, I was fast. I'm not some 260-pound 5-star recruit. I went to a D3 school, but whenever we were reading the keys of our linemen, coach had a saying. He said, and then you go.
Yeah.
But before you know, don't go. It's that simple. So you see the high hat, you're like, oh, boom, that's pass blocking.
Yeah.
I need to pass rush. You see a low hat, boom, I'm staying put. I'm clogging up the hole I have outside contain. Once you have that orientation, you know what your responsibilities are. And I feel like that's true for kids as well. It's once you know what your responsibility is, once you know how you're supposed to react.
Yeah.
Because every little kid wants to grow up, and every young woman wants to be a great woman, and every young man wants to be a great man. We all have different definitions of what that looks like.
Yeah.
That's why I've come back to that consistency. It's important for me to show up so the young men know what a good man looks like, and the young women know what a good man looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, not trying to date any of them, but it's important that they see adult males being respectful, kind, gentle, compassionate, empathic, because that's not something that they see a lot in American society. Is guys that are emotionally intelligent. And the young men need that just as much as the young women need that, right? It's this kind of interconnectedness that we all have to be here with each other.
Yeah.
And so let's make the best of it that we can by being as accommodating without damaging our own psyche as we can be. it does me no harm to let somebody go first in front of me at a stop sign.
Yeah.
It does me no harm. Like,
yeah.
And if I can say that as an impatient guy who likes to speed at like 95 plus on the freeway,
Yeah.
right? I think it's applicable to everybody else from kindergarten to 99, right?
Yeah.
It's not it really doesn't take a lot to be good to others.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I try to teach to the kids as well, is that showing up consistently and being good, doing what you ought to do consistently, right? You've seen it when I coach. I'll simply ask the kid, is that what was asked of you? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so now you know why you're getting talked to, right? And they're like, yep, because I did exactly what I was asked not to do, right? And it doesn't have to go beyond that.
Yeah.
I don't have to demean them. I don't have to yell at them. I don't have to spank them. I don't have to discipline them. I'm like, you know what the standard is.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat you like an adult.
Yeah.
You know, that way you learn how to act and relate to adults in a way that's easier than, you know, some of my counterparts maybe.
Yeah.
It's my job not just to coach up the skills that you have at work, but also to teach you healthy communication skills with each other and with adults.
Yeah.
Right. If I yell at you every time you cry, are you ever going to tell me why you're crying? No, you're not.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do any good because the crying is annoying me. You're obviously, something is obviously amiss, and that's why you're crying. Yeah. We want to get it fixed. But if I don't have the patience to sit with you through that crying and find out what's going on, if I get reactive and throw my own version of a temper tantrum, which adults, we throw temper tantrums when we raise our voice, we lose our temper, we get angry, we yell, we scream, we do all sorts of things. Kids are going to shut down in front of that. Yeah. And so something that I've had to work very hard on has been my temper and stuff, because I do kind of get riled up quickly. It's a double-edged sword, you know, on some hands. I'm very glad that I can, if the need should arise, protect my family. Right. Very glad about that. On the other hand, very aware that part of me only comes out in extreme, dire circumstances.
When needed.
Right. And so there's a balance at work as well of being a strong man who can be compassionate and kind and all these things, right? It's a very delicate thing to walk with the kids, is how are you perceived as strong, but also approachable, gentle, soft. And that's one of the places I feel like I've grown the most at, is being able to be tough and strong, but also approachable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for dads. When I was younger, especially my boys, not my girls, but if my boys would fall, I'm like, get up, you're fine. Right? I was a real tough kid. I busted my head open 3-4 times, never cried. Right? It was just, I see blood, I'm like, oh man. And my wife would kind of walk me through that, right? She's like, why do you not care that the kids are hurt? And I'm like, it's that I don't care. Not that I don't care, but like, I didn't cry when I was little, right? And she's like, but they're not you, right? Like they're different, right? And so then I started noticing, as my boys grew, if they ever got hurt, they would never ever come to me. They'll go to my wife. And I think it's a good lesson for dads too. Like you said, like I can still instill like toughness with the boys without being like so dismissive of like, you're fine. And like, you know, because they might be understanding like, oh, well, dad doesn't care, like, but mom does. Yeah. So then I'm not like, why am I going to go to dad when I fall? Right. And I don't want that. Right. I don't want my kids to ever feel like, well, I can't go to you for this. Yeah. Right. And so I like that you shared that. Cause I still want to instill, you know, strength and respect to my boys, but I can do that while accomplishing I'm going to be approachable. I'm going to be empathetic.
Well, I've found that that's what really takes more strength.
Yeah.
Right. It's so fortuitous that I got into the fitness industry, because like I do see a lot of parallels with life. Right. And strength is simply the ability to manage something without really losing yourself in it. If you think about it, right? Like I've got a bench and I'm bench pressing. Well, if I lose control of that weight, right, on the down, on the up, wherever, if I lose control of that weight and I get all wobbly and stuff, chances of me being able to complete that rep diminish greatly. Right. But if I'm able to at least control it, I still may not be able to lift it, but at least I can control it. And that shows a certain level of strength. And that's kind of with the things that we go through in our life is it's like, hey, sometimes you just have to kind of put the shield up and bear the storm behind your shield. Like it's not, you're not safe because you're in a safe place. You're safe because you took refuge behind your shield and the storm is raging all around you. And that's how you show, as a man, you show your real strength is you are calm in the storm. You are sublime almost. Like this is no big deal for me. Right. And maintaining that control and that composure, I think is one of the most masculine things you can do. And I think it's really great that kids get to see when I get flustered in class, when there are disruptions in class, that I don't lose control of either A, the class, or B, myself. Right. I always, even if I have to redirect a bunch of kids, even if the class is being a bunch of bad kids, right, which they sometimes are, even then I try to like, once it's addressed, it's over. Because I don't like to repeat myself. And I feel like if I repeat myself, then it doesn't get taken as seriously when I say something. So I say things generally once. And then maybe I'll give a warning before we have to do like burpees or sit out or something. I had to sit a kid out the other day. He would not listen. And so it was under 4. So it was a parent-based class. And so I just stood there with mom while holding him up, had him in, I call it air jail for the little ones. Like you just pick them up and they can't run anymore. You're just holding them, but they don't weigh anything. So you can just hold them forever. So I put him in air jail for about 30 seconds because he was like running into his classmates. And I was like, hey man, I've asked you several times not to run into your classmates. Please be careful. I understand you're excited, but you're going to go to air jail for about 30 seconds. And he's like, what? Awesome. And I just like snatched him up and put him on my hip and still kept coaching. And mom was just like, I told you, you got to listen to Coach John. So
you do a really good job of classroom management. But that's one thing I have noticed. I tell Natalia, I'm like, man, I was like, he's my favorite coach. And I think that's why, right? Because of you're able to manage the kids to where they're able to have a lot of fun, right? But then if anyone steps out of line, I've noticed 2 things with you. The expectation doesn't change, right? You don't ever say, I guess that's okay. Like, no, like that's not okay. But you're never like angry, frustrated. You're never like yelling at the kid, right? It's always very controlled, and it's very I don't know, man. It's just really good the way that you manage all of the kids. And I would say you're strict, but again, some people hear strict and they think yelling, they think angry, they think no fun, right?
No, I have a high standard.
You have a high standard.
It's a high standard. You're capable of this kind of behavior, so therefore I expect this type of behavior. It's not anything outside of that. It's I know what you're capable of because I've seen you do it before. Like when we first started coaching in September and stuff, it was kind of a game of playing catch up because you have to figure out how to rein the kids in, but you don't exactly know everybody's behavior level yet, right? You're like, okay, well, they had a bad Monday, but like the next week they were really good. Which one's the real one? Okay. Like, are they really bad often, or are they really good often? And this one was the fluke. Like, which one's which? And so you get this kind of you have to catch up to the learning curve as far as how the kids are. But once you start to establish that baseline for how each kid is going to behave, it becomes very easy to see where they're improving and what their potential is. Like we had a kid in my Friday night class who, used to be a super big troublemaker, like just all the time having to correct this kid. And recently he's become one of the biggest helpers in class. And I'm just like, that's, does he still get out of hand every once in a while? Yes. But his attitude has changed.
That's good.
I can celebrate that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the things is like, we all have these like preconceived notions as to like what kind of growth we want to see in the kid. But that's never really how it works out. It's always something different and like kind of chaotic to where they get good at, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to see different things, but above all, you get to see that potential for them at their best version of themselves. And you can, instead of casting, guilt, shame, condemnation. I don't know about you. I'm a believer, right? I believe in Jesus.
Yeah, same.
No guilt, shame, condemnation in Christ Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So why am I going to allow it in my classroom?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm a believer of Christ, why am I going to allow any sort of guilt, shame, or condemnation influence how I discipline my classroom?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just not going to do it. And so I call them to their best selves. It's like we're talked to in the church. We're convicted to righteousness, right? Yeah. God's not sitting there pointing at you going like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. He says, I know what you're capable of with me in you now. Yeah. And that's what I expect. And that's the same thing that I tell the kids is, I know what you're capable of. I've seen what you're capable of. Yeah. Be that.
I like that.
Be that.
I like it, man. Very cool. Yeah, I really like that. So then so what is your title at KidStrong?
Coach.
It's just coach.
Just coach.
Okay. And then with so let's say I want to work at KidStrong and I don't have a degree. Is there a difference in coaching levels?
No. As far as I understand it, no. I am in a unique position because I'm semi-retired through my VA disability.
Oh, nice.
I don't really have to work that much. Okay. I choose to because I like to.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like I've always been around sport, so the fact that I have a degree, I wouldn't say you need it to be involved. A coach at KidStrong, mine has certainly helped me. Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at going into a master's program for something called recreational therapy.
Oh, nice.
You can become a nationally licensed, whatever state licensed therapist dealing with recreation and whatnot. It's pretty unique and cool field. But I feel like that's a lot of what I do at KidStrong. Is we're helping the kids learn to mentally, physically, and cognitively process different obstacles and things in their life. That's what recreational therapy is. So my degree has certainly lent me towards being a very good coach, especially like what I talked about earlier. Confidence or competence equals confidence, right? So I'm in there. I know why we're doing all the little things that we're doing. I know exactly what skill, like when we're doing balance beam stuff, we're working on your kid's proprioception. Okay. I know that. I can explain that to a parent who's like, why are we doing that? That seems really simple. Like the beam or the balance beam isn't very high. It's like, it actually doesn't need to be very high. It just needs to get them wobbly, stuff like that. Wow. I can take a more scientific approach to how things go, especially if they're having difficulty with one specific movement. I'd be like, okay, let's break it down. And then if you do the parts and you practice the parts, eventually you will get the whole. Nice. Right. And so it's, like I said, it's easy for me because part of my background was biomechanics. So when I'm trying to teach a kid to do a 2-foot jump, as simple as that sounds, some kids have a hard time jumping off of both feet. They want one foot on the ground while the other one is up because they want to be stable. Yeah. So instead of having them jump over parallettes, I just have them do tuck jumps as high as they can, get their knees into their chest. Just jump and get your knees into your chest. You don't even have to move forward. Just jump as high as you can and get your knees into your chest. Yeah. Do that 10 times. You do that 10 times, I guarantee you'll start seeing those parallettes as not very high. Yeah. right? And it's about that again, consistency, right? What do we practice all the time? What do we put our time, energy, and focus on consistently? Because that's what we're going to get better at.
Yeah.
So like I said, being able to break the things down, being able to understand the scientific premises of things and why we're teaching the kids this, that makes my job easier. But as a whole, you don't need it to work at KidStrong. They have a really good training program that teaches you how to coach. I just am lucky that I've been around sport my entire life. So I've had 1,000 great examples of what good coaches look like.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad you decided to work because Natalia loves your class.
Well, I'm glad. It's always the highest compliment when parents are just like, Coach John, like, we love your class. Like there's a part of me that's like, yes, awesome. And then there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I know I'm good.
Yeah.
There's a small part of me that's just like, yeah, I'm aware. I'm kind of good.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then your schedule, is it all evening?
So I only work Monday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. So I work Monday and Friday nights. And then I work Saturday mornings. Generally, I have a pretty set schedule though for like what I do with my day.
Nice.
Usually wake up around 7, take my dog on a walk 1 to 2 miles at least. Then we get coffee and he gets a pup cup.
Oh, nice.
Now I'll come home and I'll write or work. Like I'll either write on my blog or I'll work on my book.
Okay.
Do some housework, laundry, and dishes, whatever. Eat lunch around 11:30. Lift weights around 12:30 to 1:30. And then start getting ready for work on Monday and Friday.
Cool.
And then, but the afternoon, it's more housework, chores, errands, grocery shopping, things like that. Working on the back end of the business and the marketing side of stuff.
Yeah.
I do that on my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then save, everything else for Monday, Friday, and Saturday.
Nice.
As far as
and
work
then
goes.
the other coaches, do they work 3 days, 5 days?
I don't know who has the most hours as far as the other coaches. I know some of them are in school, and like different classes are easier for them to coach. Like morning classes are easier because like they have all afternoon classes, or like
that's flexible.
Evening classes twice a week because they have this is their schedule. Like Monday, I think with the requirements that we have, Monday, Friday, Saturday is probably the best schedule I'll probably be able to finagle out of there. I like having my 3 days in the middle of the week to get stuff
a good schedule.
Done. It is, but there's also like, it's hilarious. I hear this all the time. People are like, oh, must be nice to be 100%. I was like, you realize like I have legitimate brain damage from that, right? Like, like, and they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, you're basically telling me it's nice for me to have brain damage. Thanks.
Yeah. No, well, they like the benefits, but I'm sure they wouldn't want the experiences that you went through.
No, for sure. It's, but I like the work, and I think that's what really makes it special to me is that it does tie into the writing that I do because we've kind of talked about it time and time again is you'll constantly learn stuff from the kids to apply to your life, and you'll constantly learn stuff about how you're interacting. Like there have been nights where I've gone home and it hasn't been a bad lesson. It's been a good lesson. It's been one of those like, hey, John, like you did a really good job disarming that conflict in class. Like you didn't lose your cool. You were super, like you were this, and this, and this. You were everything that you wanted to be. That's a lesson in and of itself that these things that we're aiming for can be reached. We just need to give ourselves a little bit of credit when we reach them instead of playing the false humility, oh, shucks game. Oh, I'm not that good. Oh, I'm not, because it's like, that's what I was kind of taught my whole life is like, if you brag at all, then you're not a good person. And like that was
prideful.
Yeah. You're prideful. And I'm just like, well, I'm proud of some of the things that I've done. Like, am I allowed to be proud of some of the things?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've really worked on, and I want the kids to work on a lot too, because it's something that I haven't done a great job. Is like, recognize your wins, as small as they may be. Take a win where you can get it.
Yeah.
The world is full of losses. You're going to lose more times than you can count.
Yeah.
But you will always remember a win.
Mm-hmm.
Always remember a win. That's from it's from Shorzy. It's a TV show. I didn't come up with that cool
quote.
It really stuck with me though.
Yeah.
He's a hockey player. He's talking to a bunch of kids, and he's like, people are trying to make it about this, that, and the other, right? But keep it simple, right? Keep it about winning, right? It's like, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
But it is always more fun when you win. Whether you're an adult, whether you're a kid, it's always more fun when you win. Yeah. It's not an elitist thing, right? It's just, heck, with let's say my demons, my temper, for instance. If I win against that, and that's something awesome. That's something to be celebrated. It's like when we celebrate people who are alcoholics being sober for X amount of months or years or whatever. Like, that's a big deal. Yeah. Because I recognize how many lives that's destroyed, how easy it is for, alcohol to destroy life. The fact that you were able to put it down when you were addicted to it and rise above, like, that's a win. And I think we all have maybe not the same degree of wins in our life, but we all have different little things about us that we don't want the world to see, that we want to fix, that we want to improve, that we want to be better at. And when we hit one of those, it's good for us to say, good job, self. And I want the kids to see that. Like, even if it's like, we had a young lady who swing throughs on the parallettes, when you have to put your hands on the parallettes and just kind of swing your feet through. Very terrified of doing that. Very terrified of letting both of her feet off the ground and momentum take her. Very afraid. Did it once, last class. Yeah. One time across the entire class or across the entire course, did it once. Yeah. But she did it. Yeah. She knows she can do it now. Yeah. And that's one of the big things that I think that a lot of the kids need to see, is like seeing that they're capable of doing the thing. Like, when the box jump is really high, right? Like, I don't know if you remembered when we were doing the box jumps as the skill, and I pulled out our boxes and got them up to 36 inches. Yeah. And then I jumped on top. Because, like, the kids were like, 18 inches is too hard. And then my old backside went out and rocked a 36-inch box jump cold. I'm like, if you practice, you can do it. And that's kind of, leads into what I'm saying, is like, when they see they're able to do difficult, hard things, oh man, the sky's going to be the limit for those kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think self-esteem and self-confidence is important. I think the arrogance comes whenever you're trying to put someone else down. When you start to compare, I'm better than you. Yeah. And it's like, well, you don't have to put out anyone's fire to light your own fire.
No, you don't. And like, it's kind of cool you mentioned that. I'm pretty impressed that I've made it nearly 54 minutes without mentioning the row. That's something that we learned on the row in 2019. Me and 3 other guys got into a super canoe and rowed it like a rowboat across the Atlantic Ocean.
You went across the Atlantic Ocean?
Yeah, 50 days, 11 hours, and 35 minutes, 2,756 nautical miles. But the thing that's cool about it is a race, but nobody cares what your time is. Okay. You care what your time is, but nobody else does, right? Like, when you get to the dock in Antigua, everybody that's there that was a rower as well, because there's kind of a crew of, there's like about 30 or so teams, all the way from fives all the way down to singles. Okay. There's roughly about 30, 35
wow, there's
teams.
people that do that by themselves.
Yeah. Wow. But everybody's biggest thing is, hey, you made it across. Yeah. Like, nobody cares what your time is. They're not like, oh, look, I was faster than you. They're like, hey, I'm glad you made it across safe, because it's a daunting challenge. And so you learn that kind of like healthy pride, where you see a multitude of people congratulating each other, even though some were better, even though some were worse. Everybody's just happy that the goal was met.
Yeah, that's great.
well, what if we took that to the rest of life?
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have to be getting one up on my wife. I don't have to be getting one up on my boss at work. I don't have to be getting one up on my friends.
Yeah.
You know, I can just be proud of myself and carry that with me. My therapist told me something. I'm probably gonna butcher it. She's really smart. But it's if love, acceptance, compassion, etc., can all be self-sourced, then they're never really that far away from you.
Oh, nice.
And so when you have that kind of healthy pride in accomplishment, you're proud that you did a hard thing, right? When kids do that, oh man, they become like prodigies. It's crazy to see it.
Yeah.
And I love seeing it because it makes all the struggle that you went through worth it.
Yeah.
When you weren't able to be proud of yourself for a thing, and you get to, like, I live vicariously through those kids.
Yeah.
I see them win, and it's like I'll go home, call my mom. I'll be like, yeah, so-and-so couldn't get a 2-foot jump on a 6-inch box for like 4 months. And then today they got it. They were awesome. So like, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
That's fulfilling to me, is when the kids start pushing their limits, when they can start having that healthy pride that not a lot of adults have.
Yeah.
Right. When I see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds acting more adult than a lot of adults that you see in the parking lot at HEB, right? That's a big win.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to self-source those good things, it's hard for adults, it's hard for kids, but I get the opportunity to go and try my best to teach that every day.
Yeah.
Self-source your own pride. Like, look at what you just did.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. Like, I encourage you, but you did the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't do the thing. Right. Like, I had a kid doing a front roll this past week. Very uncomfortable, very nervous about front rolls. Again, wanted my help every time.
Okay.
At the very end, all I did was I just had one finger on his hip.
Wow.
Just one finger on his hip. And then he did it and he was like, yeah, but you were still helping me. I was like, I wasn't helping for anything. Like, I had a finger on your hip. Like, that is like, I was like barely touching you and you did it. And his dad was super impressed and he was super impressed. Awesome. I was like, I always joke with the parents that they should take their kids out for ICECREAM after, you know, even though classes get over late at night, and I know sugar right before bed's not generally good. When the kids do something really cool like that, I tell parents all the time, I'm like, get them some ICECREAM. And they're like, what? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, kid. You'll be fine. But it's one of those things of like being able to look at mile markers of success in your life, right? We talk about, like, I'm really big into mental health. And one of the things that is hard for me to do is to remember all the times that I have won. You know, they're there. You know, I beat cancer. That was a win. I rode across the ocean. That was a win. Wow. But because they're not right there in front of my face, I forget about them. I get discouraged. I get other stuff. Happens with kids too. They forget about all the times that they've won, and suddenly they start feeling shy and not very confident, right? And so, like I said, I get to go out and practice being the best version of myself every day, so that these kids can be the best version of themselves. Yeah. And that's a really cool job.
Yeah,
like that's a really cool job when you are strictly focused on that. A lot of fulfillment, a lot of joy, a lot of love. The amount of hugs I get. Like, I do not necessarily, like, I look at myself in the mirror and like, I think I'm a good looking dude, but to a small child, I'm not sure I'm necessarily the most huggable looking guy. You know, with the long hair and the beard and everything. But the amount of hugs I get from the kids is insane, and it's good, and it's a blessing to me, because what that says is that I've really connected with that kid. because their hugs aren't like, adult hugs where you're just being friendly.
Yeah.
If a kid comes up to you and hugs you, it's genuine. They want you to feel that hug. Like they haven't learned all the terrible things about being an adult yet. They're not all jaded like we are. And so they come up and they give you those hugs, and you're just like, oh, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Well, you're it's obvious that you're passionate about what you do. So now I want to jump into the writing because now you want to, you make an impact with the kids, and now you're trying to share it, with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your blog called again?
Okay. So it's spelled really weird. It's GIT, GIT.
GIT.
More, MOAR.
MOAR.
Betterer. So better. And then betterer.
Betterer. Get more betterer. I like it.
And it's simply, it took me like 35 years to come up with the perfect name because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh man, what? I don't want to put that name on a shirt and like wear it. Like, I got to figure out a good name. And I finally figured that one out, and I started writing on Substack, and it quickly became something very necessary for me to kind of offload some of the things. I'd say the blog in and of itself has been therapeutic.
Yeah.
Because I talk about a lot of things. I'm very open with a lot of my struggles and a lot of the things that I've done, a lot of the mistakes that I've made, a lot of the bonehead moves I've made. It's a very honest part of myself, but the great part about it is very similar. Like kids, when an adult reaches out to you and tells you, hey, what you wrote today, I needed to hear that. Mm-hmm. That's one of the most genuine compliments I think I could ever get.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, it happens pretty regularly.
That's great.
Because I try, like I said, I try to be real and talk about the things that we all kind of struggle with, which is, name a vice, right? Anger, lust, what's another one? The coveting, wanting, never being satisfied, jealousy, like, we get bombarded with that kind of stuff all day. What if somebody was brave enough to open up about the times that they regret they were jealous or covetous or dishonest or, name a negative attribute. And so I was like, I tell people all the time, like, I find a lot of freedom in accountability. When I hold myself to such a standard, when I hold myself to accountable, just in general, I find a lot of freedom because I am exactly responsible for what I am responsible for and nothing else. I'm not responsible for what you did, not responsible for what he or she did. I'm simply responsible in myself. And if we can't be accountable and honest with ourselves, then we're willing to probably believe anything that anybody says about ourselves, including ourselves, right? Because our own inner critic is terrible at times.
Worst.
It is destructive and demonstrative, but also if you use it appropriately, it is a very powerful tool. I will not hide anything here and say that last night I had a really good cry.
Oh, nice.
We have at KidStrong, we've recently, I'll tell you off air,
sure,
but recently at KidStrong, we've gone through something plus all the other things that are going on in life.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I cried, and for a good long time. And instead of my inner critic being like, oh, John, you're weak. Oh, John, you're this. It was saying, like I was saying out loud to myself, it's okay to feel these feelings. Yeah. It's okay to have these emotions. Like, you have every right. Like, your dad is in the hospital. This other terrible thing is going on. This other terrible thing just happened. John, it is okay to be sad. Yes. Like, and we don't, it's crazy. Yeah. We don't tell ourselves that enough. Yeah. I tell kids that all the time whenever they're crying. I'm like, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's ever going to fault you for crying here at work. Right. We just want to know what's going on so that we can help. Do you need us to just sit here with you? Do you need us to do something? Do you need us to fix something? Right. Same way with the writing. Okay, John, is this a you problem? Okay, maybe, or maybe, yeah, you know what? It's not even a me problem. They did this. I could have responded better. This is a me problem. But that whole situation isn't a me problem because we tend to kind of consolidate everything together, and often we wear that burden on our shoulders instead of spreading it out, right? Like it's a bunch of people's different problems that all kind of came together and culminated in a conflict and whatnot. But we don't have to worry about those 15 things. We have to worry about
what can I control?
What can I control? Exactly. And so the writing is not super high level. It's very nitty gritty. There are often a lot of typos that I recognize after the fact. And I'm just like, I should have put a question mark there. Way to go. Everybody's going to think you're a dumb writer now, John. But like I said, with the coaching and the writing is I get to take things back and forth. Like one is like the field and one is like the lab.
Yeah.
The writing is the lab. And then the kids are the field, and then sometimes the kids are the lab, and the writing is the field, right? And it just kind of goes a little bit back and forth because sometimes I learn something from the kids that I could really use and I would really need to hear myself.
Yeah.
And then there's something that I woke up with on my mind that's like, hey, you need to put that in an application in class. Like you need to write about it and then you need to go apply it.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, they always kind of feed off each other, and it's not one before the other. Sometimes it's, sometimes it goes clockwise, sometimes it goes counterclockwise, sometimes one before the other. But it's nice because I think practice is the way that you get better at anything. And when you're able to really focus in and hone on practicing one thing a week at a time, or with kids, right? Like, because like I said, I write about 3 times a week, and so those are 3 different things I'll try to take into my 3 different classes. Often the big thing is just staying composed, right? If I was staying composed in a lot more areas of my life, probably wouldn't be in some of the situations I'm in, but they've both been equally beneficial and they feed each other because of just their very nature of forcing you or your perceptions to expand.
Yeah. I didn't want to forget what I wanted to share. No, I love what you said about emotions because I think especially with men, it's difficult. I only saw my dad cry once. It was when his dad passed away. It was the only time I ever saw my dad cry. And then it's funny, my son one time asked me, because I fell or I got hurt or something. I didn't cry. And he's like, hey, so when did you stop crying when you would get hurt? Because he was like, when he was little, he was maybe like 6 or 7 and he falls and he would cry. And he asked me when I stopped crying when I got hurt. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's like an adult thing, right? Like, because I play soccer, so I fall all the time, right? And then I'm a home inspector, so I'll I'll hurt myself at work, I'll cut myself, whatever. And I'm like, I don't cry. Like, why don't I cry?
Like I'd had a mental block for probably, well, I don't want to say 3 months. I don't know really when it started. But I would find myself being really sad and unable to cry.
Oh, really?
Like, and I was just like, I know I need to let this stuff out. I know that it's good to let it out. And I'd have like little 5-minute cry sessions where I'd cry for 5 minutes and then be like, all right, get back to what we were doing. Last night was like a 2.5, 3 hour long, just sitting there crying and letting it go. And I was just like, I'm like, man, I'm real glad a woman doesn't see me right now. Like, I was like, man, I look pitiful because I was just sitting in.
They would have probably found it attractive.
I was just sitting on my couch, just crying my eyes out, repeating after me, like, it's okay to be sad, John. Like, you have a lot of good reasons to be sad.
Yeah.
And, like I said, is bringing that back to the classroom. It's kids are going to go through stuff, and something that I wasn't really taught is how to move through sadness.
Yeah.
I love my dad. I love my mom. They're great parents. They did an absolutely phenomenal job with the tools that they had. Mm-hmm. Could they have been better? Yeah, but all of our parents could have been better. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that they kind of gave me is to simply not quit. Mm-hmm. And when you have these kids fall and get back up again. Yeah, I spent a lot of last night crying, but I'm up again today and I'm happy today. Yeah. I let those things off. Being able to express that emotion is important. And it's not, my parents taught me kind of, the reason I brought my parents into it is like my parents, as great as they are, to a degree, taught me how to be sad without feeling sad. Because that's how they dealt with their issues, with their disappointments in life, as they were just like, you could feel this palatable sadness, but you never saw them cry. Mm-hmm. You never saw them get demotivated. It was always behind closed doors. And I was just like, it probably would have been helpful for me if I'd known that it was okay to cry like this. Yeah. For whatever reason, from what happened in Iraq to the cancer actually, I'll tell you what, the cancer was the one thing I didn't have a problem crying about. I would cry on the daily for like 20 or 30 minutes while I was going through that. I was just like, I was so bummed about the cancer. But like the kind of cool side of it, and the thing that I don't know if the kids necessarily get this is, but the cool part of the cancer is like, now I'm thankful for it. Yeah. Because it's taught me so much patience. It's taught me so much empathy. It's taught me so much sympathy. Yeah. Like I can look at somebody and I'm like, I get it. Yeah. I know what it means to be helpless and incapable as an adult. Yeah. So I can only understand how, and it was terrifying for me as an adult. So I can only imagine what it's like being like that as a kid. Mm-hmm. Well, man, we've got a heck of a responsibility, and so like I said, I tell people, I'm very thankful for the cancer now, like in the same breath, like to hell with cancer, but also I feel like I decided to let it be a positive thing for me instead of a negative thing. Like, don't get me wrong, I hate cancer. I hope it never comes back. I hate it. Anybody that is battling it, like, I am your biggest super fan. I want you to beat it because it takes so much away. But the good news is through it, I'm able to talk to a lot of these kids in a way that I was never given that opportunity. Yeah. And that's kind of where everything boils back, is like, there's a bunch of stuff that I give that I didn't get when I was a kid, when I was their age. And it's very important for me to be those things for them, because I'm like, if I don't, I don't know what these kids go home to. They could go home to the world's best parents who teach them emotional intelligence, empathy, all this. They could. And they could also go to a house where, their parents are not the most loving. So what's my obligation? Yeah. Well, my obligation is to always be a really good representation of what they can be. Yeah. Well, what do you got to do that? Well, you got to fix your life. Yep. You got to get rid of the disorder in your life. You've got to organize your life. You've got to do the small, important things. And most importantly, you've got to endure through it all. It's heavy. I mean, life is heavy. Like, we all want to talk about like our specific traumas and this and that, but I don't think I can name you somebody under 30 that hasn't, or somebody over 30 that hasn't experienced extreme pain, suffering, and loss in their lives of some sort, whether it's losing a parent, whether it's losing a child, whether it's getting a career-ending injury, whether it's not getting the job you wanted, whether it's, you're not doing as well in school, right? Our understanding of what's traumatic is so personalized that it's useless to compare traumas. What's important is seeing how we climb out from those. I would venture to say that cancer is a pretty solid trauma.
Yeah.
And learning to crawl out of that has made me much more gentle, much kinder, much more forgiving, much more compassionate, much more sympathetic, empathetic, all of the above, generous. Everything about who I am and who I choose to be has, at least in my book, to some degree, gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
Ever since the cancer. Weird.
Yeah.
Right? Not sure how much I like that. The only way I learn is by getting cancer. That's not fun for me. No.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you just have to kind of take a different perspective. And once the kids get that different perspective, like I'm sharing in the writing, where it's about self, right? It's about, you're never in competition with somebody else. You're always just in competition with yourself. You just have to be better than yourself was yesterday. That's what the real competition is. It's not about being first or this or that. It's, do you feel like you moved well? Did you move without pain? Especially as you get into our ages, right? Did you move well without pain? Yes. Oh, that's a big one. We'll have to do more of that, right? Because look, I'm healthy. I'm in pretty good shape, but I do have to wear 2 knee sleeves for my right knee.
Oh, wow.
Or else my patellar tendon screams at me. It is angry. I can still lift, but there are parts of me that hurt.
Yeah.
But they're not big enough to get me to quit lifting. And it's the same thing with, the kids at KidStrong is and in the blog, there are parts of life that hurt.
Yeah.
There are things that you are going to fail at.
Yeah.
How do you respond?
Yeah.
How do you get up? Do you get up begrudgingly and it's a chore? Or do you get up with, there was a quote, I don't remember who said it, but I think it might have been Jordan Peterson, but I can't be 100% certain. But it was regarding perspective on different things. And it's you can either look at something like, I have to work out or I get to.
Yeah, I've heard
right?
that.
And it's with the kids. You either have to jump up over the box or you get to see how high you can jump. Same thing.
Yeah.
Very different attitudes towards each one of them.
The mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, mindset's huge. Mindset's really, and like you mentioned earlier about the experiences that you've had and now your mindset having gone through these things, right? I think it's something very powerful that you can share, right? You can tell the kids, you can not try this, or, right, you can try it and you can fail and fail forward, and eventually you'll get through it, right?
Yeah.
It may take 2 weeks, it may take 2 years, but I think it's great that you're able to tell people, hey, it's great on this side.
Yeah.
Right? It's you're never going to tell anyone hey, get cancer so that you can learn all the lessons I did. Yeah. But
no,
do hard things and face fears and all these things that come out of doing hard things and beating sicknesses and traumas, right?
Whatever.
But you got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
You can't, if you would have said I have cancer, oh man, that's it, right? Yeah. And not fought it and not persevered and not consistently done the things, how can I beat this?
Yeah.
Right? I think those are the character forming things that now you're able to tell the kids and in your blog, hey guys, I went through, you know, the things I've gone through. And I had a guest not too long ago, her house burned down.
Ooh.
Yeah. And all the lessons she learned through that. the lessons of, you know, what's really important in life, right? You really learn that. And yeah, now, and I tell her, man, you're going to help a lot of people, because she's a leadership consultant now.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, you're going to help a lot of people, being like having gone through a house being burned down. Like imagine the effects, but also like you said, if she deals with it properly, there's a lot of positive that comes out of that experience.
Yeah. Nobody ever wants any of those bad things to happen. I mean, I certainly like, don't get me wrong. If I could go back tomorrow and not have had my cancer, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. But also, now where I'm at, would I forego having the lessons learned? No. You know, it's crazy how loss is what builds us.
Well, it goes back to the muscle thing that you said, right? Like,
it's counterintuitive though, because you don't think that being broken down is what's going to make you better.
And even when you're working out, you feel weak, but it's actually making you stronger.
Exactly.
Like I started working out less than a year ago, like actually working out, because everything I would do before I turned 40 was cardio so that I could have enough stamina to play soccer. That was my whole. And now I'm like, you know what? Like there was a friend of mine that told me that muscle protects bone.
Yes.
And I'm like, I need to start working out, right? I need to start lifting. I need to start eating better. And so I've been doing all those things. And yeah, when I'm working out, like you said, I don't always want to do it. And you feel weak. But then, you know, my wife, a couple months after my birthday, she's like, oh man, she'll come and, you know, like, oh, like I see the difference. I don't see it, but my wife's like, oh, I see it.
Nice.
And I'm like, man, that's cool. That's good. And I do. So when I was 40, I could only do 3 pull-ups when I started. Now I'm up to 12.
Heck yeah, man, that's a lot. Like that's more than most people can do.
And awesome like you said, it's consistency, right? It's just like every time I work out, I do pull-ups. Good. Pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. Like those are things that I do all the time. Like, and yeah, I've just been trying to find. I started off following like a YouTube video. Now I've been doing it for a while, so now it's just like I have things that I do. But yeah, consistency, and it's just 1% each day.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a little bit of a lazy person. And so when things are broken down into easy to digest, I'm like, that is my stuff.
That
and
I
so
can
like,
do.
So like I tell people, I'm like, you don't need to do a whole lot, because I do get overwhelmed with like insurmountable tasks sometimes. Like let's say I've got a lot of laundry to do. I'll look at it and be like, wow, that's so much laundry. I should really do it. So I'm going to go take a nap instead. Right? But with those insurmountable things, right? Like even at our worst, there's something to be learned. And it's, do we have the discipline to push through on the things that we don't like? Like I do not like doing laundry.
Yeah.
I often have an insurmountable mountain of laundry that I have to do. And I know that I need to do it. And when I do it, when I get that like kind of pang, I feel a lot better about myself. But I still will put it off. Like right now I have a big mountain of laundry that needs to be done. And I've been putting it off. I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. And then, but the thing that I found is that tomorrow always stays tomorrow. Right? Today is today. And tomorrow is tomorrow. If you say you're going to do something tomorrow, guess what? You're never going to get it done. Because tomorrow is always tomorrow. And it's never today. Today is always today, but it's never tomorrow. And people are just like, wait, what? And the basic premise is like, without assigning names, right? Like Tuesday, Monday, whatever. Tomorrow is just, when we say I'll do that tomorrow, it's kicking the can down the road. It's saying I'm going to make that future John's problem. Well, future John already has problems that are going to come up. He doesn't need past John kicking problems to him for him to solve. He needs to solve problems right then and there. And so you learn that lesson. And that's something to take back to the kids, right? So you write about it, then you're like, oh, you know what? This would probably be really good for the kids too. Learning that kind of just commitment, right? That's the other thing that I talk about is oftentimes to be successful at something, we just need to commit to it. Like you don't have to be necessarily skilled. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be fastest. All you've got to do is just commit. See, like, I don't know how it made so much sense to me. I actually learned that lesson on a ski slope after cracking a rib when learning to do jumps on my snowboard.
Yeah.
I was landing terribly, and one of the guys came up to me who's more experienced rider, and he's like, it's because right before you hit the jump, like you'll go up the ramp, and right before you kick off, you'll hesitate and bleed some speed off. And so you won't get the proper rotational forces going on for your jump, and you'll land poorly because you didn't fully commit. And I'm just like, oh, he's like, when you go, just full send it. Like let it go. And so I was like, okay. And so I did, and then I landed it. And I'm like, oh,
that's awesome.
When you just kind of say, you know, I'm all in and dive headfirst into the deep end.
Yeah.
Crazy how things work out for you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that if you don't know how to swim, you should go jumping headfirst in the deep end, but I didn't know what I was doing. And this guy said, your biggest thing that's stopping you is your fear.
Yeah.
Your fear of failure.
Yeah.
Just go send it and you'll succeed. Go, you know, without sounding like a snowboarder, like full send it, bro.
That's true. Because when I learned how to swim very late in life. I was 27 when I learned how to swim. And I would always stay, when we would go to pools, I would stay in the shallow end, right? And yeah, my friend of mine that taught me how to swim was it my wife's cousin? I don't remember, but he was like, you have to go to the deep end. You have to go to where you, like you said, right, to where you can drown, right? And then he was like, I'm going to help you, right? And then we were kind of by the edge, like if you need help, like you can grab the edge, but you've got to be in water
you've got to be
that's deeper than you.
Yeah, you've got to be someplace where you're not guaranteed success.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're ever at a place where you're guaranteed success, like you're probably falling short of your potential.
Yeah.
That's definitely been true everywhere that I've worked.
Yeah.
Good jobs, bad jobs, whatever.
Yeah.
If you're going to be perfectly successful there, like you should probably be doing the next higher ups job.
Yeah.
You know,
in education, they call that the zone of proximal development.
Yeah.
It's like, like lifting, like I can lift so much, but with a spotter, I can max out.
Yep.
And then that's going to make me stronger. And then the next time I max out, it's just
be willing to take more chances with a spotter. Like I don't bench press above a certain weight in my home gym by myself because if I can't get it up, like it's a problem. It's a me problem. It's nobody else around. Like my dog's not going to come out of the house and like lift the bar off my chest. He's gonna be like, wow, Dad's been lifting for 5 hours.
Yeah, you can definitely take risks, but then there's also you can safely take
take those risks.
There's a balance. Well, that I wanted to bring up, I wrote this down about community, the importance of community. I heard this, a friend of mine sent me a clip where this preacher's preaching, and he says, like, when God created everything, right? If you notice in Genesis, on day one, the light, and he separated the light from the darkness, and it says, and it was good, right? And then day 2, it was good, and then day 3, everything was, and it was good. And then the pastor says, do you know when the first time God said something was not good? And then he talks about how when Adam was with all the animals, and he said it's not good for man to be alone, right? And then so he goes on to preach about like the importance of community and the importance of, right, like that's not a verse to say everyone should be married, but it's the importance of interdependence, right?
Yeah, we're social creatures.
Yeah.
We need that social aspect.
Yeah.
So it's one of the big things that I like to wasn't necessarily trained into us, but recognizing the spirit of KidStrong, it's something that I take is is that teammate attitude.
Yeah.
How are you helping out your teammates?
Yeah.
Right? Because wherever you end up in life, at some point, you are going to be a teammate somewhere, whether you're married and a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom, whether you're single and at a job.
Yeah. Even if you own a company.
Yeah.
Like eventually, I mean, you could try to do everything on your own, but if you really want to maximize what you're best at, you're going to start hiring people to do things that you're not good at or don't have the time to.
Yeah. And you need that for your own development too. Like when I was isolated during the cancer, because I had to be because I was immunocompromised, like my cognitive function dropped significantly.
Really?
Just from not having that community, just from not being able to talk with people. And so when it comes to like the KidStrong classes in that community, it's like, hey, like let's make sure in addition to everything else that we're supposed to be doing, that we're good teammates too. Well, what does a good teammate look like? All right, well, you're not pushing in front of another student if they're having a difficult time at an obstacle. That's one way to not be a bad teammate. You know, offering up encouragement is a way to be a good teammate. Hey, you can do this. I believe in you. Things like that. Keeping your hands to yourself, you know, or being gentle. Like if we have to get someone's attention, we don't smack them. We gently place our hand on their shoulder and hey, can I talk to you for a second? Right? We're not accosting each other and stuff. We're not talking over other people, because I'm guaranteed kids are going to be like, 20 something years old. They're going to be in their first meeting with their boss and they're going to be talking to their work bestie and the boss is going to lose his mind and they're going to be like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
Because nobody ever demonstrated that, hey, when your boss is talking, like maybe you shouldn't talk.
Yeah.
Like maybe like that's generally a bad practice, right?
Yeah.
But that's why we do the things that we do at KidStrong, is because we are training these kids to be wholesome adults.
Yeah.
Like good, competent, thinking, kind, compassionate, good adults who are still strong, who still know to take care of themselves, who are emotionally actualized, who have emotional intelligence. That's what we're trying to build there. And so everything becomes relatable.
Yeah.
Right? Because that kid may like race cars. So you got to figure out a way to make it relatable to race cars for this guy.
Yeah.
They like horses. You got to make it relatable for the girl who likes horses. And that's how she learns stuff, is through learning about, like, you never know what circumstance you're going to come up with in life or in KidStrong where you have to relate to a kid in a certain way, right? You have no idea. And so you have to be prepared. And that's where kind of like the writing and the reading comes down, is like that preparation for being a coach, right? There's a lot that I do that prepares me to be a good coach outside of KidStrong. Like y'all see a version of myself that I've generally, on days that I worked really hard to put together, not to fool you guys, but to understand, okay, John, like you're not in the privacy of your own home. Whatever bad habits you have, they need to take a hiatus, right?
Yeah.
Because one, you're practicing bettering yourself. Number two, you're practicing being a good example for these kids. And if they see any of your bad habits, they may pick up on them. That's more trouble for their parents. So you don't want to, almost like a doctor, at first do no harm. First do no harm, right? So I sit there and I kind of get centered and focused on being a coach.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not John whose dad is in the hospital. I'm not John who's going through a divorce. I'm Coach John and I'm here for the kids.
Yeah.
Yes, all that other stuff is going on.
Yeah.
But on the days that I work, getting centered so that I can have that focus, so that I can have that intention. So the kids not only receive it, but they learn it. Right? You'd much rather have much more intentional people in life, right? That live with intention, that think proactively rather than reactively. And so, like I said, it's a very big responsibility to do that for the kids, because they're incredibly able to soak up whatever at this age.
Yeah.
You know, from walking till 11, they are freaking sponges.
Yeah.
They pick up on everything.
Yeah. Have you heard that quote, more is caught than taught? That kids will notice. So my wife and I do financial coaching on the side. And a lot of the conflict that the husband and the wife have when it comes to finances comes from when they were children, and and a lot of the times it's like, well, my parents never taught me about finances, and it's like, okay, but you learned something, right?
Yeah.
And so I always think about that quote, more is caught than taught. Like you said, they're sponges. The kids are always learning from adults, whether we're teaching them or just being a good example, bad example.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
They're picking it up.
I used to have this fight with my ex-wife, because we were right before the cancer hit. We were thinking about starting a Try for Kids, and kind of leading up into that, I had kind of been talking with her. I'm like, we really need to like kind of clean up our act a little bit, because like we want to be parents, right? And she's like, yeah. And I said, then we have to start doing better at setting the example, right? Like we can't just say it anymore. Like we have to, if we say take care of yourself, they need to see us exercising and taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. If we're telling the kids get good sleep, well, then we need to be going to bed at a reasonable hour. If we're telling the kids, hey, you know, you need to eat healthy, we need to be teaching them what healthy food looks like.
Yeah. Right.
We can't demand a standard from someone without ever showing them how to get there or what that standard looks like. That's your job as a parent, is to teach what the standard is, make it relatable. And like I said, I'm just very, very fortunate that I get the opportunity and the trust to go and do that at KidStrong with these kids, that I'm somebody that's viewed as trusted. Yeah. Right. Like, these are your kids that you're entrusting us with. Yeah. So you're not going to give it to some schmuck, right? You're going to give it to somebody of high trust. Yeah. And we want to make kids of high trust. And so it just like it continually, everything continues to touch and bleed into the other thing, whether it's the writing. I know we want to talk about the writing, but the writing goes right into the coaching, and the coaching goes into the writing. And it's just kind of all whole, I guess, it's as I'm ordering my life, I'm finding out how many different areas affect other areas I thought they had no effect on. Yeah.
It's all connected.
Yeah. It's like, I'll be like, oh, I didn't really realize that was related to coaching, but I learned something about how I could take care of myself better from one of my students this morning. Yeah. Right. And that's always interesting, because you never know where you're going to learn something. Yeah. You know, creativity is just this open-ended box where I mean, who knows what's going to come out? Mm-hmm. You know, the best example of that is, I don't know if you've seen these advertisements on Facebook for the sheets that have the handle to pull under the mattress. Mm-mm. So it has it's a normal fitted sheet, but at the corners it has a big oversized handhold that you can get a good grip on and pull it under so that it stays nice and tight for a long time. Yeah. Very simple thing. Yeah. Right? Everybody should have been thinking about fitted sheets should have had that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, even hey, it's kind of a pain to put it under. Let's put a little handle on there so it's easier. Yeah. But it just recently came out in the last 10 years. Yeah. You don't know where creativity is going to come from. You don't know where the next big, great idea is going to come from. I think that's a whole great idea, because the way our bed frame is, it's a pain in the butt to get the fitted sheet on. Yeah. But with those handles, it'd be on in 2 seconds. Yeah. And you could find all the corners easily as well. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, there you go. So with kids, with coaching, with writing, you never know what you're going to walk into that changes your life, sometimes forever. Mm. I can tell you straight up, these kids have changed my life forever. Yeah. While I was going through some of the stuff that I was going through, I thought I was scary. I thought I was, a person of low trust. and to have kids open up, trust, and like being around you, man, it's kind of nice for a guy that was in the position that he was, where a lot of negative had been said over, between the cancer with negative self-talk, and then the separation of my wife and I with a lot of negative talk back and forth between the two of us. Like, I was really genuinely lost as to who I was and what I was. And then I come in with these kids, and suddenly I'm finding myself.
Yeah.
And I'm finding my passions, and I'm finding my childhood joy.
Yeah.
And then I get to go home and write about that. Yeah. And then I get to come back and experience it again. And then I get to go home and write about it. Or I get to be at home writing, being like, oh, this is going to enhance their life so much. I'm going to take this with me today. So
that's awesome, man. Well, you're definitely making an impact. And yeah, it is all related. The funny thing is, I started this channel about work and about careers, and every time, like, there's just life and life lessons just
right,
just come out.
It's hard for me to focus on anything sometimes, because it's like it is also interconnected, right? The way that people don't, it's going to sound very reasonable when I say it, but most people don't think this way. But like, your drive to work is going to probably affect your day at work more than anything else.
Yeah.
How do you drive to work?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Are you late?
Are you
honking?
Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you anxious? Because like, you're going to carry that with you. And so like, I always leave for work. I always leave like super early. I don't need to leave this early. I always end up sitting in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Sometimes I get a little like late afternoon hungry, and I'll be like, I'm going to go to Taco Bell before work. I'm going to get some Taco Bell. Usually it's on Friday nights. But no, I think very clearly about what I'm going to do that day with regards to how it's going to translate to the kids. Right? Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I really don't do much thinking about the kids. I think more about myself, obviously, and like fixing my problems. But then on Tuesday, or on Monday, Friday, and Saturday, I think about all those things that I worked on myself for, and I'm like, how could I make this applicable for the kids? And and what can I learn from them? Not just like, what can I teach them, but also opening myself up to what can I learn from them? Because maybe they have it more figured out than I do about this, that, or the other, right? Kids are incredibly resilient and very intuitive, creative problem solvers. And so when you look at it from their perspective, you're kind of doubly blessed because you get a taste of what it was like when you were a kid again. You get that nostalgia. You're like, oh, I remember to look at the world that way, Yeah. And then on top of it, and then secondly, like, you get a little bit better version of yourself because you're just like, that was so unique from that kid. Like it sticks. It stays with you.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll challenge your beliefs, right? Because sometimes I learned this from parenting was you have an idea of how you want to implement something, and then you try it, and then it doesn't go the way, because your child is, has their own personality, they make their own choices, and not that either of you were wrong. It's just, I need to find a different way either to implement that, or that's just something I shouldn't implement. And I'm thinking specifically about my oldest daughter, Rebecca. We would give her allowance, right? And we're like, hey, we want her to learn the value of work. And so we're like, okay, we're going to give you chores, and we're going to pay you for these chores, right? Like, that's the connection I want you to learn. Well, fast forward, she started paying her little brother Mateo. We would give her $1. She would pay him $0.25 to do her chores. Right? So then I'm like, okay, that's smart. But
like, I don't want to, I'm proud of you for thinking like that. But that's not the goal.
That's not the goal. So Now we're like, okay, now we give them money. We don't call it allowance. We give them money because we want them to learn to handle money. We want them to make their money mistakes and not get into debt.
Yeah.
Right. And so we still give them money, but the expectation of cleaning the room is like, you have to clean your room.
Yeah.
Just because, and you have to help. Chores isn't, I'm going to pay you. It's, you're part of the family. You live here. We're going to take care of our stuff.
You're going to contribute.
Yeah, you're going to contribute. And we want you to learn about money. So here's money. Right. And we don't connect those two things. Right. Someone can do that a different way, but that's how we do it.
You know, you never know how it's going to work until it does or doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that we saw a lot in marketing. Like marketing was, I don't want to say it was easy because there's a lot of work that goes into it. But one of the funny things that I saw in that realm was that with A/B testing, like you're just not going to know if it's going to work until it does or doesn't.
You gotta do it.
Like you can put all the thought and this and that. You can put all the planning into it.
Yeah.
A great quote that reminds me of that saying, like sums it up nicely, is planning is everything. The plan is nothing.
Oh, nice.
Right? Because you have to be able to let that plan kind of evolve on its own.
Yeah, once you execute it, it's like, okay.
Like I had a class on, I think it was this past Monday. It was my last class. We ended up only having 2 students in the class. And so by the time class went through, they had all gotten so many reps in and everything that they were exhausted. Yeah. So there was a skill portion. You know how we'll like in between the course, we'll have the little like brain game or whatever. Yeah. I let them play that for an extended amount of time because like they'd been getting the course done just fine, but they didn't really need to work on their hand-eye coordination, right? And so we worked on that for about probably 2 or 3 minutes longer. Okay. Yes, the plan is to do it like this, but with only 2 kids there, being as tired as they were because they were getting so many more reps in than they would normally get in, play it by ear.
You gotta be flexible.
I could be glued to what we were doing and, just hammering them through the course and making them more tired, or I could actually to get something of benefit out of it with maybe a higher level skill that they got to learn. And that's how it goes with every class is you guys wonder why I'm able to keep my composure because I plan on every single class going wrong.
There you go.
Like they're kids. They're walking age to 11. They're going to be disobedient. They're going to be sassy.
Something's gonna go
They're
wrong.
going to have something to say. They're going to be talking to their neighbor. They're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
You need to make it. I found that, interestingly enough, one of the best discipline strategies that I could have is to not let it affect me.
Yeah.
I think you've seen it is when I've just been quiet in class and I'll let them figure out that, we're not doing like, why I can't hear Coach John anymore. Why is that? Oh, it's because he's staring at us while
we're talking. Like, well, we should be listening.
Like, what's going on? But being unaffected by their stuff, like I don't have to make you do burpees now. I'm not gonna I don't want to do burpees. And I usually do burpees when I make you guys do burpees, but I don't want to do burpees. How else can I discipline you and come across as strong but not come across as overbearing? I could just let silence do its work. And then you just sit there quietly and like some of the kids are like, all right, Coach John, what you gonna do? I'm like, well, we're waiting on your classmates. And I'll keep a smile on my face the whole time. And they were just like, and like eventually somebody like tap them and be like, hey, shut up. Hey, Coach Sean's waiting on you. And then they're like, oh, oops. And I'm like, I know. We could have been playing, but you guys wanted to talk.
Yeah. And it reinforces what you mentioned earlier about like, I don't want you to talk over me, so I'm not going to talk over you. Yeah, exactly.
It's
like I'm listening.
It's that respect. Like you obviously feel like what you have to say is more important than what I have to say. So let's hear you out. Let's hear what you got to say. And but the cool thing about it is like going back to what I said earlier is like you don't know what the kid is going home to as far as that parent's discipline. Yeah, remaining silent and unaffected while still paying attention to the problem. is probably one of the easiest ways I know to not overstep that line.
Yeah.
Right. Because like if you yelled, if you said anything, right, there's a lot of ways that could be taken wrong.
Yeah.
But simply having a look, the dad look, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
What is the you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw you not doing what you're supposed to be doing. How's that gonna go? Not good, right? Yeah. Maybe do right. And you don't even have to do anything. But that's
it teaches them to make that choice. As opposed to you yelling, because you can either physically or verbally get to a point where you can make them do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
But that's not the goal.
That's not the goal. The goal is to get them to choose.
For you to have self-control. Yes. Like not for me to control you, because that's not real growth. And that's not. Yeah.
It's just fear.
Yeah.
It's fear. We want you to do the things you're supposed to do because you see intrinsic value in doing the things that you do, right? Like for me, people are like, why do you work out? Well, a lot of reasons. But the main one is that working out literally saved my life. I talk a lot about the cancer and the chemo. The chemo is really brutal. I am convinced to the point of absolute certainty that if I hadn't been in as good a shape as I was in prior to being diagnosed, I probably would have died from the chemo.
Wow.
I have no idea how I lived through the chemo because there were 2 different bouts, 2 different rounds. I had 2 rounds of chemo, and I couldn't take in even like a cap full, like a water bottle cap full of water without throwing up and getting really, really sick. And that lasted for 7 days, 2 times. You don't eat or drink anything for 7 days. Most of the time, you're dead, right? Especially the drinking, right? If you don't drink anything for 7 days, you're going into renal failure. You're done. Yeah. I was 70 pounds lighter than my walk around weight. So I went from 205 to 135.
135.
Yeah. So like for frame of reference right now, I'm about 185, 190, maybe even 195, right? It's not exactly 70 pounds to lose.
Yeah.
It was really, really cruddy. I don't know how I'm alive. Yeah. But I am. And the only thing that I can think of is that I was in really good shape before the diagnosis. And so when people are asking me like why fitness is important, why exercise is important, why taking care of yourself is important, one day it may save your life. Yeah. It may. You mentioned something earlier about muscle protecting bone. Yeah. It does. One of the big reasons I like to build a lot of muscle is the deployment before mine. Before I got to my unit, there was a young man who was really big into fitness and lifting weights, and he was in the gun turret. He'd gotten thrown, I think, a couple 100 feet from the Humvee when an IED hit. But other than that, he seemed to be fine. Got up, walked over, started helping casualties, this, that, and the other, etc. He ended up eventually passing away due to injuries. He had massive internal bleeding. Wow. But he was able to live for about 3 days. If they'd caught the internal bleeding, they would have been able to do something about it. Yeah. But because he wasn't reporting anything, because he felt fine, because he had so much muscle, he didn't have any broken bones. He had a few scrapes and stuff. That's impressive. You're strong enough. You have enough muscle that it basically protected your internal organs enough for you to be flung 100 some odd feet from an IED, and then you're helping people and walking around for 3 days. Oh, wow. Like, holy smokes, dude. Yeah. Like, I know I don't get to be immortal if I get really strong, but it sure seems like it helps. Yeah. And so that's, it's not obviously something I would ever share with the kids. That's very terrifying, but it is another kind of feather in my cap as to why these things are important. You don't know. You could end up saving your life one day. Yeah. Yeah. The reflexes, the balance that you're learning here, the ability to do a proper forward roll and protect your neck. Yeah. Save your life later. Yeah. Right. Let's say you get into a schoolyard fight, little whatever, and you fall down and you don't know how to, and you know how to do a forward roll. So you fall and just roll instead of hitting your head on this, that, or the other, right? And you're snapping your neck. You never know what kind of things fitness is going to do. And so it's always just been a very practical thing for me, and being able to, kind of go back and teach kids all the parts of it, all the parts of you that it builds. Because I mean, really, if we want to ask where my desire to coach started, I went to Judson High School, nice. Just down the road.
I went to Roosevelt.
Okay. So I went when DW was there. So like you were aware, like you were there when DW was there. And we were a big football school. Yeah. I was a big football player. And his things were a couple of things. Number one, he had a quote. He said, just do what's right and do your best. Let winning take care of itself. Okay. And then the other thing he said was a little bit more long-winded, was something along the lines of like, it's easy to coach football and teach people how to win football games.
Yeah.
My job as a football coach is to develop young men into better young men.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and I grew up in that environment where that was just, we're not teaching you to play football. We're teaching you to be a good teammate. We're teaching you to be a good man. We're teaching you to be strong. We're teaching you to be fair. We're teaching you to be a team player, teaching you to be coachable, right? All of these things are going to be beneficial later on in life in some shape, form, or fashion. Like you don't have to be a professional athlete for teamwork to matter.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room for integrity to matter.
Yeah.
Right. Those things matter alone.
Yeah.
Like having integrity and whatnot. And so you get brought up in an environment where sport and athletics is always about making the whole self better. Kind of feels like coaching is almost a no-brainer at that point, when that's basically what you are. Heck, I'd even say indoctrinated into over the course of your entire life.
Yeah.
This is a standard. This is what's expected.
Yeah.
Go do it. Okay.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah. That's great, man. Well, it's definitely needed. It's definitely important. The physical aspect, all the physical activity that you are involved in teaching, from kids to your writing, it's very, very important. I heard a statistic with actually it was an interview that I did with someone from the Navy, where their standards have gone down in the last decade, because the kids coming in aren't as physically fit as they used to be, right? And that's a lot of things, right? It's, our sleep patterns. It's, we're up now more with phones and screens and just the light. It's the food, right? We're eating unhealthy. A lot of kids are not eating very healthy nowadays, right? And so, I think the work that you're doing is very impactful. And I would just encourage you to keep it up, man. I love it.
I try to make it impactful. I think it's important. A big thing I've said is like, I think I've said it even in this interview, is that I want to give kids things that I didn't have as a kid. Right. And, like I said, my parents did the best with what they were given. All of our parents did. I've got no ill will towards my parents. Like, could they have been better? Yeah. But they also didn't know anything about ADHD or anything like that. They didn't know how to handle kids. They didn't know what triggered kids like that. It's not their fault. They didn't know. There was nobody knew.
Yeah.
But now, like coming into the coaching place, when I have, parents are like, oh, sorry, my kid's so hyperactive. They've got ADHD out the wazoo. I was like, well, lucky them, because so do I. Right. And it's one of those things where I feel like I've collected a whole bunch of vices and turn them into virtues. And so like parents can come and they're like, my kid's, a nonstop talker. And I'm like, me too. So I know but it's weird because like, I know how I want to be dealt with when I'm in those situations. Like when somebody's kind of making a comment about like my ADHD-ness, right? Or my proclivity to talk too much, which happens, believe it or not. Like, I have no idea. But, oh man, what was the point I was getting at? Son of a gun. Darn ADHD gets me every time. But But being able to take like these things that the parents think are debilitating things and then I get to look at the kid and tell them, I'm like, it's not debilitating. You're just different, man.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is. Like you have plenty to offer the world.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you're different, don't let people say that different means less than.
Yeah.
Right. Different is just different, and less than is definitely less than. Right. Just because you're different, you see the world a different way, you communicate, you interact with the world in a different way. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're less than. Learn to embrace yourself. And that's the big message that I hope the kids are getting from me is be you unapologetically. Like we can refine it and grow it and mature it along, a reasonable path. Right. But at the end of the day, be proud of who you are. Don't hide pieces of yourself because you think they're not good enough. It serves nobody. And it weakens us when we hide parts of ourselves because we think those parts aren't good enough or unworthy or, like my therapist is making me right now. She's like, you mask very well. And I'm like, I think you're right. I do mask very well. I put on a pretty solid mask that says I'm okay. Everything's okay. But inside, like I am losing my stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, so like, why don't you make peace with those parts of yourself? And I feel like teaching kids to make peace with those parts of themselves before they send it packing like we did as adults. Cause like we have so much trauma from we have so much trauma that we haven't dealt with yet. But, seeing them be able to take the first on-ramp for, this issue rather than 20 years down the road. Yeah. Right. Like I'm a big advocate for mental health, for instance. I will, if a parent is like, hey, I'm thinking about sending my kid to therapy, absolutely do it. Yeah. Because therapy to me is a lot like taking your brain to the gym. It's not you're broken and damaged. It's I want my brain to stay healthy and to think appropriate and right thoughts about me and my life. It's not a bad way to be, Yeah. So, but making that peace, I think, is incredibly important because we think that people are going to judge us or people are going to shut us out and that we want the attention of those people who are going to do those things. But the truth is if they can't accept that part of me is just part of the whole of something good, probably not the best influence to be hanging around with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Therapy is the gym for your brain.
It is.
I like that.
It's perfectly that. And it just, like I said, it goes back to the fact that like practice makes permanent. Yeah. Right? It doesn't necessarily make perfect, but it does make permanent. Yeah. The things that you practice will be the things that you execute.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's all connected, right? Emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, like all of it's connected. If anything's out of balance, it starts to infiltrate the other parts, right? Yeah. And so, cool, man. Well, I want to respect your time. I have a couple questions to end.
Okay.
I don't prepare my guests for these. What, the first one is, how do you right now define success?
Right now, I would define success as peace, not externally, but internally. I've long believed and had trouble with applying this, but I've often said that because I follow Stoicism, is that the strongest person in the world, the most powerful person in the world, is not a king, not a president, not a dictator, not a member of SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force. It's simply the person that is in control of themselves. Oh, nice. If you are fully in control of yourself, you are one of the most powerful people on the planet. And so success, to me looks like that piece of being totally in control of myself. Are things going to go horrible outside? Yes. But if I can always take a moment to take a step back and take a breath before I respond, that's success. That's the win, is being in control, at peace. No, they say boats don't sink because of the water on the outside. They sink because of the water on the inside. Right. So, if you make sure, you don't necessarily have to make sure your boat floats. I mean, you kind of do, but mainly you just got to make sure that no water gets in your boat. And that's success.
Well, that's what therapy does, right? It plugs the holes and
it bails the water.
I love it. And then the second question is, what was told to you growing up as far as like careers and work?
I was led to believe that the world is a much smaller place than it is. Like I said, love my mom and dad, great parents. Didn't necessarily have a lot of creativity mindedness towards careers. Like if you would have told me that I'm making a living the way that I am now, I'd have been like, how? Like, how? Because my parents didn't necessarily share. Like, I had no idea that a recreational therapist or somebody that majored in kinesiology, I had no idea that was a thing. I had no idea. I had zero idea. And like I said, like, I'm not hating on my parents. They didn't know. Right? Like, so if they didn't know, how could I know? They couldn't teach me. I couldn't see it. It's not. So what was I told about the world? I'm going to say something that is a little less true now, but still, I don't think it's entirely bad, is that, go to college and get a good job. I think it's a little dangerous because it is a lot harder than just that. But also, I'm thankful for college for expanding my horizons and teaching me a methodology of thinking rather than what to think. Like, I know how to critically think about various different things and come to my own conclusions about them. So I think college is still incredibly important. Is it overpriced and expensive? Yeah, probably, for sure.
I think that's the issue people have with college.
And our workforce has changed, and we haven't necessarily adapted in the best ways to that. But I still think, some of that old boomer advice of, go to college and get a good job. Well, it's not quite that simple, but I still think college is a net gain. If you major in things that, I guess, to some level bring you joy. Like the exercise science, right? Like, it's something I do for a job, but it's also something I do for fun. And it becomes a lot easier to do it as a job when you look at it as doing it for fun. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool, man. Is there something you want to share? That's everything I had. Is there any closing thoughts or advice to anyone out there that would want to, either write or kinesiology or KidStrong, looking into those careers?
So as far as writing goes, the best advice I can give you is to just start writing. Find your voice. It's going to take a little bit of time. And as a writer, you will always be developing your voice and finding little new interesting ways that you can do something in that field. As far as the kinesiology, I highly recommend the field. While it doesn't pay a lot, your body will feel a lot better because you'll know how to work out without injuring yourself. And then at KidStrong, if you have a passion for setting the next generation up for success, like, KidStrong is probably where you want to be. I'm looking at probably moving on eventually because I'm looking at getting my master's and becoming a recreational therapist, and the money there's a lot better. And I could probably do some very exciting things. I could probably work for like a NFL or MLB team or something like that. That would be cool.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be cool. You know, get a phone call from the Houston Texans and they'd be like, "Hey, man, you want to become our recreational therapist? You just have to play like, you know, cognitive brain games with the football players all day." Oh man, no, I don't want to do that fun job. Right. So, awesome. But yeah, all the things. So the big thing that I tell people as a general rule, the closing advice I give them is a couple of things. Number one, don't wait for an opportunity to come up. Create your opportunity. Don't waste an opportunity when one is sitting right in front of your face. And then don't worry about what's going to happen. Don't wait. Don't waste. Don't worry.
I like that.
Right. Because shoot, I didn't know ocean rowing was a thing until 7 months before I did it.
Oh, wow.
Right. Like I had no idea that people did that for fun. And then 7 months later, I'm doing it.
That's
right.
Awesome.
So I didn't wait for an opportunity. I didn't waste the opportunity I got, and I didn't worry about what was going to happen at home. I was like, it's all going to fall into line. We'll figure it out. Wow. And then the thing I close out my blog with is be well, which is a way of saying like be unbothered by external things, right? It's not necessarily be happy or this, that. It's be well, right? Yeah. Like you've heard the old hymn, like it is well with my soul. Yeah. Be well. Be well. Live real, right? Don't be a fake. Just always be authentic, your authentic self, and then leaders lead. Because, you know, if you want to be a leader in anything, you got to be active. Yeah. You can't just be sitting there telling people how to do stuff. You got to be showing them how to do stuff. So be well, live real, leaders lead.
Awesome. Very cool, man. I love it. We'll end with that. And thank you again for coming.
No problem.
And thank you guys for tuning into My Line of Work. I hope today's video inspired you to find the work you love. If there's a career you're curious about, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to feature it. Hasta la próxima. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. That was really fun.
Such a good video.
I hope you get a lot of hits.
Yeah.